M2KC comes out ahead comfortably. And Charlotte Phoenix also, you know, they got Korlik, who's playing the Paladin most likely, and then Burn, Nick, and Jamili brings them Destro and then melee, or Mage and then melee. So M2KC, who are also playing Mage, Melee, Paladin, these two teams are playing a very similar playstyle, both very aggressive, high threat, lots of damage, which is why I think when they actually go against each other in this next elimination series, it's going to be really, really fun.
And we're already in that elimination series, folks. It's back to best of 5. M2KC versus Charlotte Phoenix is now underway. Blind pick in the Grand Arena.
Yeah, Korlik strikes first with a full Hammer of Justice, but Drake responds with a nice double stun. Big burst onto Jamili early on. Temporal Shield looking like it should be enough to deflect the initial attack, but it's not over yet. Brain looked for crowd control of his own. Manages to find a blinding light. Jamili's still in a bit of trouble, but it looks like he should be fine with that Vitality Conduit. Now Charlotte Phoenix, they need to kind of strike back here. Can they get any crowd control? Full kidney shot onto Cerulean with the Polymorph on Drake, but Brain, free of crowd control with his Divine Favor, manages to keep Cerulean healthy.
Yeah, this should be I was going to say, there should be a very fun matchup start off NA with these double Paladin mages and the Rogue and Windwalker to go against each other.
Yeah, this is a great matchup. Windwalker, has a little bit more burst than the Rogue, but the Rogue, a lot more consistent pressure with that Mortal Strike, and now we can see it in effect here. Nick with the Maledict rolling onto Cerulean. They have the crowd control onto Brain, but he breaks out, and now finally he's going to activate that Avenging Wrath, that big Holy Light with the Divine Favor. Cerulean's going to be fine. Going for the Ring of Frost. Jamili trying to shut it down with the Polymorph, not going to be able to find it. Temporal Shield gets activated. Korlik, what are you going to do? Can he get more CC? Jamili with a beautiful Dragon's Breath. He's going to shut down the CC chain, but it's still going. DR Leg Sweep comes out. Cauterize gets triggered. Another Dragon's Breath here onto Korlik. Jamili could be on the run here. He might need to Ice Block, but I think he's going to be able to hold on to it for now. But still, a beautiful push here coming out of M2KC. And now Jamili looking to find some crowd control of his own here onto the enemy healer of Brain, but not going to be able to find it just yet. Gets counterspelled. Korlik in a beautiful paralyze into a blinding light here. Double blind, but Korlik gets out of it, and with his trinket gets a Hammer of Justice. Brain in a full sheep. Jamili could have to, Cerulean could have to use his Ice Block right here if they can get any more crowd control. Cerulean, I think that was his Battle Masters keeping him alive for a little bit longer, and now once again the Holy Paladins should be able to keep their teammates alive.
Yep. Yeah, things stabilize here for Cerulean. Was the Battle Masters holding onto the Cauterize, but here is the setup from M2KC. Hammer of Justice on Korlik. Can they get the damage rolling onto Jamili? It's actually Cerulean on the back foot. In a kidney shot, full blind on Brain. Immediate Blessing of Protection to free him from that crowd control to continue the healing onto Cerulean. And it looks like M2KC will stabilize from that attempt, but that was the blind, and now Jamili is the one that's in trouble. Keep in mind, no cheap death. This is a scary moment. Vitality Conduit looking like it's going to be enough, but Cerulean, he snipes the Divine Favor, lands the counterspell, and because of that, Jamili is forced into the Ice Block. A beautiful play by Cerulean.
It's really nice to see. That's the thing with the Paladins. Like, both of them are willing to sacrifice their health with the Vitality Conduit, but they are very vulnerable to those blink counterspells from the mages. You got to be very fast on that one. Holy Light's a quick cast with the proc, but both these mages able to land it. Cerulean on this occasion with the big benefit there, getting that huge cooldown. Now he's looking to get aggressive with the Combustion, though it looks like cooldowns from Korlik, no crowd control. They should be able to survive for now.
Yeah, another setup here, getting launched. Brain in a full Ring of Frost. Cerulean was in a Polymorph. It looks like they're going after Drake. I'm not sure how I feel about that targeting. Maybe they want to try to bop off the Karma and try to go for a big one-shot. They realize they're losing the Mage race here. Cerulean already forced out Jamili's Ice Block and his Cauterize with these setups. If he can get another crowd control here onto Korlik, it could be big. Sacrifice is faded. Cerulean looking to stack up his Combustion, and he's about 5 fireballs away from having it ready. And then I expect to see some kind of crowd control onto Nick, and then a Blink Dragon's Breath maybe onto Korlik. Let's see what they end up doing. No, they're just going to go for the paralyzed leg sweep into the Hammer of Justice, into a potential blinding light. Korlik using his human racial and gets a counter Hammer of Justice onto Brain. Brain in a full Polymorph, and Cerulean is the one on the back foot here. Could have to use his Cauterize, but no, the Vitality Conduit comes through in the nick of time, saving that cooldown for later. And once again, I would say M2KC are the one in the driver's seats here, Ben.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially with Touch of Death rolling up, as well as that Combustion. Korlik, he does, of course, have the Blessing of Protection if he needs it, but definitely going to have to keep an eye on that. M2KC has a lot of burst damage available. How are Jamili, Nick, and Korlik going to respond? Blinding Light coming in. Big damage onto Jamili once again. Immediate Divine Shield, Blessing of Protection on the Touch of Death. Korlik is not messing around. he does not want M2KC to get too much pressure here, but they traded out a lot of their defense. Korlik, he does have his trinket available with no ultimate sacrifice. It's going to be difficult for him to actually keep someone alive unless the crowd control chain is continued. Jamili right now casting out some fireballs, looking to just get out as much damage as he possibly can. Drake rolls over. He's been all over Jamili in this match so far. Korlik actually retreating, getting interrupted. Nicely done there by Drake. Nice spear hand strike. Cerulean pushing in, looking for crowd control. Can he secure it? He gets the polymorph on Nick. Dragon's Breath. Can he get the sheep on Korlik? This is an absolute nightmare here for Jamili. The damage is way too overwhelming. Beautiful setup there by M2KC, and they will claim game number 1.
Now, I feel like we've seen a pattern this weekend in particular when watching Jamili play. And I'm very curious what you think about it, Zico. I feel like pretty much at the start of every single game, he's got all the pressure in the world. It feels like they have the game almost in the bag. And then slowly, not even slowly, almost immediately, it feels like a switch is flipped. And all of a sudden, Jamili's just facing unrelenting pressure for the rest of the game. And sometimes he is going to be the player to go down as a result of that pressure. What is it that creates this dichotomy inside of these games?
Well, I think Jamili is just a really aggressive player. You know, he builds his character very aggressively, and he likes to go in and try to land CC on his own and try to, set up winning situations for his team. And sometimes it works, and when it does, he looks great and his team wins. But when he doesn't, you're in a situation where you blink in on top of the healer. Usually, you're very far away from the rest of your team at that point. And if you get stopped there and you blinked in to get there, then you're gonna get caught up in a bad position. So I don't know if that happened specifically in this game, but that's a general thing, how it goes when those setups don't work out.
Yeah, I think it's important to think about, too, when we're first getting started looking at them today, switching gears a little bit and taking our first look at North America for the day before we do crown our champion as we move through these 4 series that we are going to have. It's important to think about how they did actually get here and somewhat of a feast or famine play style when we do actually look at Charlotte Phoenix when they are using their mage strategies. On the other hand, though, I think one thing that's been consistent for M2KC is just going to be Brain being an absolute Live Lord healing stat time and time again throughout the entirety of not just this weekend, but all of the Open Cups.
Yeah, it's those big brain plays that we know and love him for, right? So he's been great on the Paladin. Honestly, I've been really impressed with the caliber of Paladin play in US specifically. I think Europe was a little bit behind. Now they're catching up and we see more Paladins coming through. Looney, Chaz picking it up a little bit more in the meta. But in North America, you've got Borngood, you've got Korlik, you've got Brain playing, and then Gurecki's been playing a ton of Paladin as well. Sidu picked it up a little bit as well. So it's been really fun to watch. And these guys, they had no easy feat to get here, as you said, Rich. They beat Golden Guardians, M2KC, and it seems like M2KC in this first game just had complete run. There was no Ice Block on Cerulean, no bubble from Divine Shield from Brain. They just had complete control of this one. So I'm starting to think Charlotte Phoenix is going to have to change something going into game 2.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the questions I wanted to start gearing up for. I think you kind of hit the nail right on the head. But before we dive head first into that one, Ven, what are the biggest differences that we're seeing between these two mages, whether it is the playstyle or just which builds they're actually bringing into the arena?
We're going to talk about that again. The gear, the AWC companion isn't updating, so it's hard to say. But just to kind of summarize what we did see yesterday, if we're just looking at gear and talents and corruption selections, Jamili often chooses a little bit more offensive options, and I don't feel like it necessarily works out the greatest. I can't really say what he was using that game. I know he wasn't playing Kleptomania, which is really standard for mages. He's one of the only mages in literally the competitive circuit that doesn't play Kleptomania against other mages. Not sure why, but yeah, I think when you are the target in a matchup like this, versatility just gives you, such a huge edge. He might have been running it, but if history is to show us anything, he probably was not. I think it's one of the key differences between these two players. But yeah, it seemed like the coordinated assaults coming in from M2KC were a little bit better. Like they just did a better job shutting down the goes, playing defensive when they needed to, and then really pulling the trigger with that offense as like a 3-man squad, and I think that's why they were able to pull out ahead.
Okay, now, Healing said, I want to go back to what you were talking about as well with what we've seen with healers recently, because I feel like at the beginning of the year, it was all about monks. Then paladins started to find their way into the meta, mostly against the monks as well, and now we've gotten to kind of a new frontier with what we're expecting with healers as we do wait to see what's going to be played on Tolvaran Arena. What do you think that the current state actually is of what healers we can expect and when?
Well, I mean, we've seen every healer this weekend, which I think is the first time I can say that the entire Cup season. We even saw a couple of Druids, although I don't expect too many more here in North America. It's really interesting because Mistweaver, I think most people would agree, just has the strongest throughput healing and is hence a very well-rounded defensive option. But then you've got, on the other side, you've got Paladins, Priests, and Shamans that all provide something aggressive. Paladins, obviously, the stun and the extra damage. Priests, damage, basically, in Dark Archangel. And then Shamans kind of have their own place in the meta where they can keep you alive till, like, ultra deep dampening, and then they keep you out of crowd control with grounding and wind shear so you can push. It's super fun to see when all of these healers are getting used. I don't think we'll see any Shaman today because Golden Guardians are the team that's mostly playing it, and they're not in today's bracket, but especially these Paladins and Priests that we've seen in Europe and NA, going into the Mistweavers kind of make these Mistweavers second guess every decision they make because they could just get one shot in a Hammer of Justice.
No Carl, no Shaman. Now, it was Healingstad who said he wanted to see potentially Charlotte Phoenix maybe changing a couple of things here. Are you in the same camp, Zico, as we are waiting to see what their final lock is going to be for game number 2 of the series?
I think they're going to go for Mage Lock on Tolvaran, and if they were to lose that, I think Rogue Lock Pally is what we're going to see from them. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think trying the Rogue Mage, seeing how it plays out in game number 1, I don't mind that. But if you are selecting Tolvaran, it feels like you're trying to set up for a Mage Lock. They have it, so I think that's a good choice here.
And it seems like it's important to potentially make that change early as well. We know that this could be one of the fastest series that we actually do see today, at least in North America. And on top of that, I feel like if you're not making a change running in with the same composition, you might just get obliterated and turned into echoes very quickly here, Van. Is there anything in particular that you do want to see?
For the Charlotte Phoenix, it really is hard to say. I feel like M2KC, they have a solid answer in general. I mean, traditionally, with this comp, they've done very well into any Warlock team. They're willing to just play it out as long as possible. And Charlotte Phoenix are going to lock in the Mage Warlock Paladin. Jamili actually selecting the Frost Mage. But what I was going to say, for M2KC, they're one of those teams that are perfectly willing and able to play to their win condition, which is deep dampening against these Warlock teams. So I think that's what we're going to be seeing from M2KC. Play it slow, play it steady, wait till dampening, make a push on to burn. But for Charlotte Phoenix, I feel like they probably do have the compositional edge. They just need to make sure they're not letting M2KC get too comfortable and really denying those goes when M2KC tries to make an all-in.
You got to think about how important Burn's been for Charlotte Phoenix to even get here in this particular tournament as well. And this is coming without flame at all. It's just, this is straight up fact. I mean, Zika, they were in a position yesterday where they were about to just get knocked out of the tournament. All of a sudden, they go, okay, Jamili's going to move to the bench, and they bring in Burn, and he just puts the series in his back and gets them to the place that they're even able to play here today. So Burn has been somewhat of an X factor for this team, and it's one of the reasons that they didn't have this Sunday off.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the reasons why they got to actually come here on this Sunday. And yeah, definitely Burn has been, the player that you tag him in instead of Nick, and you play that Mage Lock. You tag him in instead of Jamili, you play that Rogue Lock. And to be honest, I think Burn and Nick, and Van can probably correct me if I'm wrong on this, I feel like Burn and Nick have played Rogue Lock for a while because their synergy is really good on that comp. They're able to set up a lot of kills early on. So I feel like their synergy with Rogue Lock is a lot better than their synergy with Rogue Mage Pally.
That's a really important thing to keep in mind. I think Healing Stats said it a little bit earlier today. I know all of us have talked about it at some point throughout the year. There's really only one team, I believe, that's made it through with a 3-man roster. And when you do look at Charlotte Phoenix, you can see a lot of that comp diversity that they are starting to sport, but you can see some of their strengths as well. The question is whether those strengths are going to bear fruit. They were able to pick the map. They're going to be able to get a little bit more space. They're going to be able to potentially slow down the game as well. Ven already mentioned that they might be going into the deep side of dampening. We're going to have to see if that's a win condition that can allow them to tie up this series. They're trying to get a win here. Otherwise, I think M2KC healing stat, you're very quickly going to be able to see them holding all the cards in a series like this.
Yeah, I think this is the one advantage Charlotte Phoenix has in terms of the composition. So, like, they do have Burn on the Warlock, right? M2KC doesn't have that, so it makes perfect sense that we bring in the Warlock Mage here. It's interesting because I do think that they're going to need some deep dampening to win this one, which in my head, like Jamili and dampening just kind of, they don't mix very well. So
it's like oil and water,
man,
yeah.
Exactly. And like I remember whenever I played against Jamili back in tournaments, his teams were always just the ones that were so impulsive and high damage and high threat. It was super scary to play against. So maybe they can generate a lot of pressure like that if Drake's in the middle of the map. But I feel like with a comp as punishing as Fire Mage Windwalker on the side of M2KC, if Jamili and Burn go for those kind of really aggressive plays with CSs on healer, they could definitely get punished for it. So they'll have to be careful.
You bring up such a good point. I mean, actually there are playstyles in WoW, and when you look at Jamili, this is not a playstyle that you would expect him to be going for at all. Then usually you see him come out just swinging, absolutely trying to get those early kills. He's going to be able to bring that intensity and maybe catch a team off guard early. But how do you think Jamili will be able to play in dampening?
I mean, he's done it well before. I mean, Jamili is a veteran mage. You have to give him some credit here. He has to be a little bit careful. Actually, you know what's interesting is I think his role in this particular matchup, especially if they're going after Burn, is to really be in the face of M2KC. So that might actually play to his strengths. I mean, when we see Cloud9 play the mage lock, it's always Wealthy Man who's just on top of the enemy team, basically 3v1ing them, and that's something Jamili might actually excel at.
Yeah, he'll love that.
Yeah, that's a really good point by Venruki. We're going to be keeping our eyes on Jamili in this one. When you think of Jamili, you don't necessarily think of dampening, but Venruki already starts to highlight some of the areas that he may be able to excel in this particular matchup. If they aren't able to excel, M2KC is going to find themselves on match point of our first elimination series of North America today.
And we're going to see the game starting out here. Jamili and Burn taking one side each of this pillar, starting to drop out the Frozen Orb, Cataclysm, Rain of Fire, Blizzard, all that good poke damage. And now Cerulean looking for a Greater Pyroblast. He actually gets it, but they're not going to commit.
Ooh. I feel like this is kind of a cheeky thing to do. We don't see mages do that very often, where they play against the double casters and they just go for a Greater Pyroblast. I think it's a good option just because you want to be baiting out those interrupts. And if Cerulean can get counterspelled and spell locked on Greater Pyroblast, then they can go for a Polymorph play. So I like it. I don't know if it's going to pay off. I don't know how many Greater Pyroblasts he's actually going to be able to get off in this match and how much pressure that's going to cause, but it definitely has to be a bit careful because every time he channels out one of those Greater Pyroblasts, he's getting poked quite a bit, as you can see right now.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting game. Obviously, the map choice heavily favors Charlotte Phoenix in terms of Drake. He's got to cross so far to even get an in-cap onto Corlic, let alone reach his kill target. So I feel like this is going to be similar to some of the Golden Guardian games we saw against Cloud9, where Drake will not commit until the team comes too close to him. And if Burn comes too close, he can maybe go for a setup here. It looks like they're actually chasing Jamili, but see the problem. As soon as he leaves the pillar, I think that was a Frost Nova coming in there into Sheeps. Now he's going to get Frost bolted. Jamili blinks away. This is going to be a tough game for Drake.
Yeah, and with Blessing of Freedom on some of these targets, I don't see Drake having any kind of fun in this match. But he is getting some damage here onto Burn. Let's see if they can potentially land some crowd control here. Cortex moving in, leg sweep onto Burn. There's the paralyzed. Cerulean gets a Greater Pyroblast off, but they don't have any more follow-up CC, and that's kind of the problem. And now they have to pull back once again. Cerulean is going to take a Chaos Bolt to the face. Brain is in a Polymorph, and now once again Blizzard, Frozen Orb, Cataclysm, Rain of Fire, all that poke damage. And there it is behind the pillar. And once again, Charlotte Phoenix has got M2KC in that chokehold position. The only thing I feel like M2KC can do is try to get a Greater Pyroblast and then have Drake maybe roll out and try to land something. But it's extremely difficult, especially before dampening, to do anything in this matchup if you're Charlotte Phoenix or if you're M2KC.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's a problem, especially when you play against the Frost Mage. If he has Ice Nova, he has his Pet Nova. Drake can just get, really, really shut down on his mobility. If he uses a Flying Serpent Kick and it gets Nova'd or a roll and it gets Ice Nova'd, then all of a sudden he doesn't have nearly as much mobility. But it looks like he will be actually putting out a little bit of damage right now out onto Burns. Cerulean looking for a greater Power Blast. Actually tries to fake it out, but fortunately not getting counterspelled there. Lands one greater Power Blast. It might have actually been reflected. Burn did reflect it now. Big damage over onto Cerulean as he's forced back to the pillar once again. And this could actually be his ice block. The Polymorph snuck over onto Brain. Double leg sweep coming in from Drake, trying to shut it down. Cerulean on the ground behind the pillar. And like I said, I feel like for M2KC, they are a team that is completely willing to just hang out behind the pillar, bring it to dampening, and play it out in the late game where they have a bit more of a fighting chance.
I definitely think they're going to need a lot of dampening. The good news for the side of M2KC is they do have so much threat when they do go for these one-shots. Like, look at this one. One G-Pie connects, they use the Combust, Burn, drops so low in just an in-cap. They get him to 30%. If it wasn't for the pre-Vitality Conduit, that could have been a lot of cooldowns. Of course, it's very easy for Korlik to land those pre-conduits and pre-sacrifices because Drake crossing 50 yards is probably enough reaction time for a healer of this level to be like, they're probably looking to do something right now. So the spell lock comes through on Cerulean. This is where they need to be careful. They are playing very aggressively, getting another greater Power Blast over onto Jamili, but of course there is a opportunity cost of that, and we're going to see Chaos Bolts coming through, Frostbolts, big damage coming in from Jamili with his Icy Veins as they look to deter M2KC. I do think since they're playing Frost though, if they can get to the deepest stages of dampening where they can go for those one-shots on Burn, it might actually be hard for Jamili to push them back immediately as Frost. So with the Sacrifice and the Avenging Wrath, maybe that's their win condition. They definitely have a good shot.
Yeah, they're going to need to get a Pyroblast, a Greater Pyroblast with that Combustion onto Burn maybe, and then just overwhelm them with damage. I think at this point, they're happy to sit back, hold on to their cooldowns. I feel like at this point, each log can do pretty much whatever they want without really having to use any big cooldowns. Whereas on the side of M2KC, if they commit to a push already, it's gonna cost them a lot. That opportunity cost that Adrian was talking about, and Drake trying to stack up. I think he is running the Tiger Eye Brew, and I think he's just going out trying to stack it up. Brain and a Polymorph, Drake and a Hammer of Justice. Big damage potential here for M2KC. One greater Pyroblast onto Burn. There's the Mortal Coil. They get another Sheep here from Jaw. And Cerulean looking to fake out the counterspell. He does. And now he's going to Sheep Jamili. Should be fine here. They might actually be able to reverse the pressure. But no, Drake is going to just respect the damage here. Coming out of Burn with those Infernals and just duck back for cover. Let dampening ramp up a little bit more then.
I think we're going to Mariana's Trench levels of dampening in this one. We're going deep, so we'll see. I mean, if Drake is just going to wait until his defensive cooldowns rotate back up, and keep in mind, I mean, the thing that's additionally scary for Drake in this matchup is Korlik's playing a Paladin, so he doesn't really have Karma as a defensive cooldown he can rely on. If he uses it, they can use Blessing of Protection to remove it, and then all of a sudden he's down a defensive cooldown. So Drake has to be very careful. He's not staying in the open for too long, as it just makes it so difficult for Brain to actually keep him alive. But as long as he's just waiting for his Transcendence to come off cooldown, he's just one global away from porting behind the pillar back to safety.
Yeah, we actually saw the combustion coming through from Cerulean there. He got the double sheep on Jamili, so he fancied his chances, but unfortunately it was DR, so Jamili just easily kleptomania that off, cancel it, as we've seen many of the mages doing. I'm not sure if it was kleptomania, since we've been saying Jamili hasn't necessarily been running that, but either way, he purged it very fast, was able to get rid of any threat from Cerulean, so Cerulean now back at the pillar. The way that Drake's actually able to stay in the open for so long, though, I gotta say, I think a part of that is due to the Frost Mage, and it's giving Cerulean the space to get off these greater Pyroblasts, and you get the feeling, if he's able to keep connecting these, as he has been, one of them is going to be really scary. Like a Blink counterspell on top of a G-Pie could easily be the end of the game, and when you've spent 7 minutes playing this kind of pincer them against the wall strategy that Charlotte Phoenix obviously have been, it'll be really frustrating if they lose the game like that. So they've got to be very careful here. You can see they're forcing a lot of damage. Jamili playing that aggressive role we anticipated he would play at the start of the game, but he needs to create more pressure for his team, maybe even push in further to deny the basically free setups that M2KC are getting on Burn right now.
Ooh, leg sweep here onto Burn, sheep onto Jamili. Ceradium looking to sheep the Dispel here, going for the Greater Pyroblast. He's going to blink back, try to avoid that counterspell range and sheep range from Jamili. He locks him on Arcane, gets another Greater Pyroblast here. Hammer of Justice onto Jamili, Hammer of Justice onto Drake. They both get dispelled, and Jamili is going to land a sheep here onto Brain. Drake could be in trouble here. What is he going to do? Is he going to trade defense and stay in? No, he's going to port out, and that's exactly what he should be doing right now. Later on in the game, you can expect Drake to very high HP, use things like Fortifying Brew, maybe Diffuse Magic to buy him more time in the open where he can try to push Burn over. And now finally, Ceralium and Brain at 21% dampening, looking here to make an aggressive push. I think Brain is not going to have his Hammer of Justice before Corlick, but Corlick gets caught up in the Polymorph. Burn actually in a lot of trouble here. Double Moral Call coming out. Jamili looking to counter pressure with the Frostbolt. It's double blinded. Burn now dropping the Infernals, but no Dark Soul just yet. Brain finally out of Corlick finally out of crowd control. Should be able to stabilize his teammates, and he is swapping side on that map, and that's exactly what you want to do as the healer with the 2 wizards. You always want to be playing on max range from the other team. You can sit down and drink and just stay back and PvE heal. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, that really is the main objective for M2KC, right? They need crowd control on Corlick, or they're not going to take down Burn unless, you know, dampening is at insane levels. Burn lands Chaos Bolt onto Drake. Polymorph now on Brain. Good push here by Jamili. Trying to get the crowd control rolling, but once again, Drake, he has his Transcendence in a great location. He had his portal behind the pillar, and now he's completely safe. And that's one of the nice differences between the Rogue and the Windwalker Monk, whereas for the Rogue, it's a little bit more difficult to get back to the pillar once you've committed your Shadow Step and you know your Cloak of Shadows. For Drake, it is significantly easier with that Transcendence. However, I think it's a little bit more difficult for the Windwalker Monk to stay in the open for, you know, an extended period of time without that short cooldown stun. Ceralium actually getting hit right now. Jamili trying to cause some big pressure, but I feel like most of their damage really does need to be on Drake, forcing him back to the pillar as often as possible. And as long as Drake is on the pillar, that's when Jamili and Burn can really find that range rot damage to make it difficult for M2KC.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of damage, they've been playing it very, very well. But one thing we talked about at the start of the game was Jamili maybe, you know, right now he's sitting between Drake and Brain, kind of. But I'd love to see him position more directly in between them so he's threatening for sheeps. Because in his current position, he should be exactly where Ceralium is, I would argue, so that he can threaten for those sheeps. Because if they just Frostbolt and let the Paladin free heal, I'm fairly sure he's going to be fine most of the game. Now he goes for it. There's the blink. You can see Corlick tasting blood in the water. He charged in, looking for that Hodge, but Drake was aware. He Transcendence preemptively, very nicely played. But now, you know, they've got this perfect situation. Drake's behind the pillar, so they can start PvEing Ceralium and Brain. And this is what I want to see from Jamili. More of this, especially at 35% dampening. This is how you win the game. Keep Drake pinned at the pillar by keeping his healer in crowd control.
Yeah, but that was the Dark Soul coming out from Burn. So the only thing he has to try to counter pressure is those Infernals. Dampening is at 30%. Drake using his Tank Trinket. A Greater Pyroblast connects. Jamili blink counterspells the second one. No Nether Ward here for Burn on that Greater Pyroblast. Ceralium's going to go back to the pillar, try to get in Greater Pyroblast range, dropping a Ring of Frost so he can't get counterspelled by the Warlock. Full sheep secured onto Brain. Touch of Karma comes. No, he's not going to use that Touch of Karma. Instead, they are going to use that Combustion, try to counter pressure Corlick, using that Blessing of Sacrifice here. Double leg sweep by Drake, charges back in. Jamili's going to use his Trinket, his Human Racial, I believe, on that one. And now, once again, Drake trying to buy some uptime for his team. He has all of his defense available. Right now, Brain is not in crowd control. Right now, Jamili is still not in great positioning because he can't shimmer sheep from that range. He needs to move a little bit closer to that pillar, but instead he's going to move back, and that's just going to allow Drake to stay in the open even longer. He activates his Fort Brew. They get a sheep. Ceralium gets the Greater Pyroblast. There's the Incap. Big damage here onto Burn. Do they have anything out? Corlick's going to Trinket and use that Vitality Conduit, so they're getting some cooldowns here on the side of M2KC, despite the fact that they are on a big, big counter setup here.
Yep. Charlotte Phoenix forces M2KC back to the pillar, but they got what they wanted. The sacrifice, the trinket, those are all little victories there for M2KC. And at 44% dampening, I mean, things are getting absolutely ridiculous at this point. You can see Ceralium, Brain, Drake all just rotting behind the pillar. Blizzard, Frozen Orb really adding up. And these Infernals being dropped down by Burn as well. Drake gets rooted on his roll. Flying Serpent Kick gets feared. So a little bit limited on mobility right now. Jamili also gets a counterspell onto Ceralium to slow down that Greater Pyroblast. They have to stop those Greater Pyros at this point. When those land, that is a lot of mana, a lot of effort for Brain to actually heal, or sorry, Corlick to actually heal through. And you can actually, what's really interesting about this matchup to me is the Paladins are basically both full mana. We're at 50% dampening. Neither one of them has really sat down for a drink, but their mana bar is still nice and healthy. M2KC in full retreat once again. I mean, you can't really blame Drake at this point. Not too much defense going to be available, but he rolls in. They want to get a setup going. They want to get the damage on to Burn. Paralyzed on Corlick. This is looking like they might want to do an all-in, but Jamili just spamming out the polymorphs. Gets interrupted by Ceralium. Nicely done, but I can't help but feel like unless Ceralium and Brain are willing to push in and try to get crowd control on Corlick, I don't really think they're going to take down Burn.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks really difficult for them to actually kill him the way that this game's going. And Corlick's mana is literally 100%. I'm curious what essences he might be running. I know there's been some conversations about Paladins running Divine Revelations to provide a ton of mana regen. Obviously, the way that their beacon works as well, it's very easy to heal single target damage because if you have your beacon on a target and you heal them, some of those heals are going to get their mana restored from the heals. And mana's not a win condition. Cooldowns is a very difficult one with Blessing of Protections and all the cooldowns that Warlocks have. So I certainly think for M2KC they're up against it here. Of course, this was the map choice and the composition from Charlotte Phoenix, so you can't really blame M2KC for clinging on to what chances they have, but it's certainly looking favoured towards Charlotte Phoenix. They'd have to throw at this point to lose this one. Jamili pushing in, trying to get crowd control onto Brain. Unfortunately, gets Hammer of Justice on it. Nice place by Brain to preempt that CC, and now Ceralium soloing Jamili, forcing out the ice block at 60% dampening. That's what it took, but that ice block is down. Now we've got a second one that could be forced out. Ceralium could do that again. He's got a Jeep high. This is scary.
Oh, he gets interrupted by the fear there on the Graded Power Blast, but still a lot of pressure here coming out of M2KC in this situation. No sacrifice for 30 seconds for Corlick, no Avenging Wrath for a couple of more seconds. It should rotate back up, so the team of Charlotte Phoenix should be fine. And now there it is, triple Shadow Fury, Chaos Bolt comes out, Ceralium is going to block the damage. And I don't know if that's the right call, but definitely saving a lot of mana and pressure there on his healer. So I respect the play. Let's see what they do here. Drake rolling back out, looking to get some pressure onto Burn. They need to get something going as soon as possible. There it is. Leg sweep comes out. Drake looking for the paralyze. Not going to go for it here yet. Corlick just max ranging beautifully, abusing this map to its full potential here. Drake once again shoving that touch of karma, but no Blessing of Protection here from Corlick, so Drake is going to get a lot of extra added damage here onto Burn with that debuff, unless Corlick dispels it, but if he does, then they can Hammer of Justice, so he needs to be extremely careful. Drake now activating his defensive cooldowns here to diffuse magic. Now he has nothing, and Drake all of a sudden is an extremely exposed target. Could just die to poke damage. Ooh, big damage on Ceralium. Is forced to block back or blink back as both teams continue swinging.
Yeah, I just don't know how much longer this game is going to last. 66% dampening. Brain, he's going to have to pull out some miracles to keep them all alive at this point. Ceralium drops out the Ring of Frost on the Fell Hunter, and maybe even the Water Elemental, but Jamili and Burn getting into position to continue that rot damage, and it's just become so difficult. That being said, I mean, look at Corlick's mana.
Yeah.
He's been burning through a lot of his mana as well, keeping Burn alive at this point, but with the Avenging Wrath, looks like they will completely stabilize. 70% dampening. It's like I said, M2KC, they are literally willing to bring us to the edge of the world at this point in order to close out this game, but I don't really know what else they can do. What are their options? With no crowd control on Corlick, I guess he doesn't have a sacrifice. They have about a 30-second window where an all-in would work really well. Nice Kleptomania Spellsteal from Jamili, removing the combustion from Ceralium, and it looks like Burn is going to be okay. Drake may have overstayed his welcome in the open. Brain can definitely struggle to keep him alive. He has the Divine Shield, but Drake's just going to be tanking the damage with the touch of Karma. And all of a sudden, M2KC, their pressure is overwhelming. Burn could be in so much trouble here. Drake getting feared up. Is he going to Transcendence away? I feel like it's do or die at this point for M2KC. If they have to run, that's worst case scenario. And you can see Drake, he's caught in the open. Big damage coming from Jamili as well as Burn. They're making a push here with the Vitality Conduit. Brain trying to position himself to get a Hammer of Justice onto Corlick. Corlick's almost completely out of mana. The Divine Shield lands. Brain pushes forward. Hammer of Justice on Corlick. Corlick, Divine Shields as well. Both teams trading out everything they have at 75% dampening.
Yep, 75% healing reduction. Both the healers are doing basically nothing. There's no mana left for Corlick, though. And it really looks like they're the team. Corlick trinkets out of an interrupt. You can't trigger an interrupt. That's going to be so much trouble. for Charlotte Phoenix. How are they going to survive? Brain is on 1 health. He gets a little heal on himself. And Drake has been forced behind the pillar.
What?
It's just coming down to these little spells from Cerealium. He's soloing Burn. The Ignite's still ticking. Is it going to be enough to kill it? It is. I can't believe it. Cerealium has no health left either. Korlik has to go in. This could easily still be a 2v3. But M2KC, I can't believe it. They get the kill first. Is it going to be enough to win the game?
Jamili looking for the frozen orb, but nope.
There you go.
80% dampening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to NA, the fast region.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, though, too. I mean, as somebody who's been in competition before, Ven, I'll throw this one to you. I mean, what's it like to actually play a game like that? Like, what does that do to your mindset for the rest of the series when you've just had to go all of the way? You basically played 2 series in 1 game. Does that have a large effect on your mindset as you do continue to move forward?
Playing a game like that and losing a game like that is one of the worst feelings ever. Yeah. Like, you are mentally exhausted at that point. You just literally spent 20 minutes basically repeating the same setups, and then healing just goes so diminished that late in the game that you eventually fall. But, I mean, that was such a close call for both of those teams. I mean, it could have easily gone the other way, with just little damage tweaks here and there. Yeah, definitely a difficult matchup to be in. And now, I mean, for the Charlotte Phoenix, what do you do at this point? I mean, do you really want to play another 75% dampening game where they're willing to just hide behind the pillar and then kill you when you're just 0 mana and can't heal anymore? Because, I mean, it seems like unless the Charlotte Phoenix can actually come up with an offensive game plan, M2KC is just going to be able to do the exact same thing. It is risky, of course, but it seems like at least they have a fair shot.
I don't think anyone's going to disagree that going that late into dampening it's going to be volatile, right? You're basically your heals are blanks at that point. But when you do actually look at that entire game, Zico, we had a situation where all the players had a closer relationship with the pillar than I've ever had with anyone in my entire life.
Yeah, you and me both. I mean, they spent an eternity together, these players on that pillar.
Yeah.
But it worked out in the end, they lived happily ever after. Right now, M2KC up 2-0 in the series, looking to knock Charlotte Phoenix out. And, what are we going to see here, gentlemen? Are we going to see, Ashamain's another Mage Lock game, maybe? Or are we going to see the Rogue Lock? I think if I was in Charlotte Phoenix, it's time to bring out the Rogue Lock. That's the comp they look the best on, hands down.
Yeah, I have to bring it up one more time, Healing Stat, because I just feel like if you're Charlotte Phoenix, you're mentally demolished at this point. You decided to go for the late dampening game. It was looking pretty darn good as well. M2KC able to get now on match point. You're facing elimination. You have to be doubting pretty much every strategy that you had. Burn was the X factor in the past. This time he's not going to be the X factor. What do you think that they actually do lock in this potential final game?
I mean, I really feel like the way that game went, they probably should have won with the Mage Lock, but it just seemed like they didn't have that aggressive touch. Like, when we see C9, they really, really put the pedal to the metal when they have their cooldowns up, at least. Whereas these two teams are just kind of waiting for the inevitable, and unfortunately for Charlotte Phoenix, the inevitable was M2KC killing with the tiniest little spells coming out at the end there. So I think, yeah, I agree with Zico. They've looked best on the Destro Rogue. Their Mage Lock wasn't quite as deadly as I would have liked. So bring out Nick once again.
I was just reading through the chat, and somebody was like, by the way, this is not a record. 89% is the record, which is currently held by Cloud9. And it's like, and Zico already made a joke about it, but remember when North America was the fast region? What did happen in North America? They've embraced the damp, and now they are the region that tends to embody it. But the question is, what compositions will our teams be embodying on Ashmain's Fall, which was the map that Zico did call before we even did get to the draft. Now it's going to be on M2KC to lock in their composition on the blind. Charlotte Phoenix does get to respond because they have lost not 1, but 2 games in a row. Ashmain's Fall can seal their fate. M2KC, Ben, it doesn't really seem like they're sweating yet. It doesn't seem like they really need to change anything. Do you think that they're going to try to, on this map, which tends to be a little bit more on the neutral side, do you think that they're going to try to play to this map at all?
They're going to play the same comp. And I think, honestly, if I was Charlotte Phoenix, I mean, they could switch it up and try to play, the Rogue Lock. But I really think Charlotte Phoenix should have won that last game. I think they had the compositional advantage. I think they had the map advantage. And I think if they had just cleaned up their offense a little bit at that latent dampening, you get the feeling that M2KC shouldn't have been able to win the game like that. But M2KC was able to punish a few mistakes and claim game number 2. But I would not be surprised if we see the Charlotte Phoenix lock in the same thing, because I don't know. For most of the game, it felt like they were in control. They had most of the pressure. Of course, like you said, Rich, it gets super volatile that deep into dampening. But I just feel like Charlotte Phoenix, their best option probably is the Mage Lock. If they go with the Rogue Lock, they can win. But M2KC always seems to do really well in matchups like that.
Yeah, and you're not going to be surprised. You were correct. They already did lock in their composition on the side of M2KC, and it is going to be the same. Now, Charlotte Phoenix, we're really going to get to peer into their mind state right now as they do lock in their composition. This is a tough situation to be in. I will say the consolation prize for all of these teams, though, Healing Stat, is going to be the big picture, because you already do know where the points do ultimately lie when you are moving into everything with circuit play, which is going to be a new frontier. It's going to be a format that we haven't really gotten to see these squads play in before.
Yeah, no, I think everyone's very excited for the circuit, and obviously it's a fresh slate for these guys since they have already qualified through to that round. This is kind of the last opportunity, though, before... The thing is with the circuit, every single weekend is going to be so impactful. It's not going to be like this weekend where if you lose a series, you just drop down to the lower bracket and you get a second chance. If Charlotte Phoenix loses to M2KC in circuit play, that's their one chance to beat M2KC, and it could be the difference between top 4 and not top 4 when you've got other teams like Golden Guardians and those sorts of guys who are also contesting for this top 4. I think it's going to be a really... This series, I could easily see being like a difference between 4th and 5th in that circuit when you've got teams like Golden Guardians, Method Orange. Obviously in the top half we've already got Space Station C9. These are the sorts of games that you need to be winning. So if Charlotte Phoenix just goes down 0-3 here, sure, it's not the end of the world going into circuit, but this will be the last time we see these two teams play before that one best of 5 in circuit.
And now, Zico, what do you want to see happen now that we have all these compositions in front of us? Is there anything that you would change, or do you think that this is the best play is to actually try to wait for the deepest parts of dampening, which you could possibly try to get to and rely on a kill there?
I feel like if you're M2KC, that's your only line of play. Same thing as before. I feel like if you're Charlotte Phoenix, there's a couple of things I want to see. Number one, how is Corlic out of mana before Brain? That shouldn't be possible. So I think Corlic should sit down and drink more, because Brain can't drink, Corlic can. So I feel like, drink. The other thing is, I want to see kind of what we touched on a little bit during the game. I want to see Jamili position aggressively, take risks. You're a Frost Mage. Even if you have to throw away a block, like you had to in the previous game, it's not a big deal. You're not really the main target. And play a little aggressive, because the other team is not. The other team is just hugging the pillar, so try to get your team ahead, try to get those advantages, and if they force out a big cooldown, then you just go back to dampening formation. The other team can't do anything anyway until 40% dampening, so you may as well take risks up until that point.
Okay, so you actually want to see Jamili play even more aggressive?
Yes. No,
Okay.
Last game, I don't think he was even playing it that aggressive. He was just kind of staying, in the open field, doing a lot of damage, but I want to see him position basically between Corlic and Drake. Because that way, anytime Drake makes an offensive push, Jamili is there. He can clip a poly on the healer, and then he can just press Orb on Drake in a Hammer of Justice, and every time that happens, Drake has to run away.
Yeah, it's funny to say that, right? And that's why I wanted to kind of put that under the microscope for just a second here, because going into that last game, we were talking about just how aggressive we've seen Jamili be throughout the entirety of these cups, and really throughout the entirety of his career. And Healing Set, you kind of alluded to the fact that you look at Jamili and you look at how a matchup like this could play out, and that aggression could have been one of their biggest assets. So now we're in a situation here when we do jump in. Are we going to see that aggression that Zico does want to see from Jamili? Are we going to get into the later side of dampening? Either way, it can be decided here. M2KC trying to get the hot 3-0.
Whoa. Oh, okay. All right. I was just taking a look at some gear choices. All right. So, yes, for Charlotte Phoenix, we do want to see Jamili and Burn really put pressure on, especially Jamili. At this point, it looks like they're going to play super aggressive. Jamili's actually just pushing in here. Looks like Infernos will drop down as Charlotte Phoenix. They want to get this game started right away. Hammer of Justice into Mortal Coil onto Brain. Can they get the Divine Shield? Unlikely at this point. Drake rolls over to back him up, and Cerulean looking for his Greater Power Blast, but I like the offensive plays by the Charlotte Phoenix. I like the fact that they're willing to push in and really start rotting down the team of M2KC early on.
Yeah, pretty decent stuff so far from both teams. And once again, we're in that position where you have two wizards trying to kind of pincer a corner at that pillar, and then you have three people trying to avoid damage, wait for that combustion, try to get out some greater power. But is Cerulean just invising right now? He invis to drop combat, then he mounted, blinked with a shimmer on his mount, and now he's trying to Cerulean, you're not sneaky, bro. What are you doing, man? Get back to your pillar. What is this?
At least choose a smaller mount if you're going to try to sneak across the map rather than a big blooming bear.
What is that? It's like the Dark Moon dancing bear. Like, what?
Yeah, there's like a skeletal horse or something. I mean, come on. I'm fairly sure we can get more advice from the chat on some of the smaller maps, but smaller mounts. But either way, that's not going to work. Cerulean, he tried it last game. He just danced behind the pillar. This time trying to cross the map with it. Not going to happen. We'll have to see. The thing is, for this game, M2KC are actually able to play so aggressive. I can't believe it. Like, Burns actually getting Greater Power Blasted right now. He's in a lot of trouble. Has to use his Health Stone. Vitality Conduit comes out, fortunately. Otherwise, that could have been the end of the game and the end of the series there for Charlotte Phoenix.
Burn and Jamili trying to force Cerulean back to the pillar. He's just sitting there channeling out Greater Power Blast consistently over and over and over. It also feels like M2KC, they're feeling a lot more confident in the match at this point as well. You can see Drake, I mean, he does portal away right now, but it seems like he's willing to push in a little bit more on this particular map. And once again, it's going to be M2KC that takes a defensive positioning here at this pillar. I actually don't like the pillar that M2KC is playing at. I feel like at this point it's not that risky to push into the open, and they should reposition to the large pillar. It makes it more difficult for Jamili to get the Blizzard and Frozen Orb combos. It just gives them a little bit more space to kite around. I think it's a lot better, but they're going to be opting to take this positioning, but I think it could definitely backfire if the game goes on too long.
Yeah, definitely. I think this smaller pillar is just going to make it easier for, more Blizzard to hit more people, etc. But right now we are seeing a push here. Drake, what are you going to do? He's going to activate his Fort Brew. Going to go back to the pillar here. Again, at this point in the game, throwing out things like Fort Brew or Touch of Karma, you're going to get them back before Dampening comes back up. And now finally a big push here onto Brain, Counterspell onto Cerulean. Do they have anything more? Do they have a Mortal Coil here? Maybe Burn. Not going to be able to land that Chaos Bolt, unfortunately. But a nice push here from Charlotte Phoenix. Finally taking some risks, playing aggressive. Burn looking for the Chaos Bolt. Not going to find it. Drake once again with a beautiful Ring of Peace. Cerulean with a nice Counterspell as well. They're going to shut that down, but all of that, it's like you have an opportunity there to maybe force the bubble, and they were pretty close. And the risk of it is zero, because I feel like you just get CC onto Brain, and Drake has to run away. And you're going to get those cooldowns back anyway for when you really need them to push the enemy team back. Jamili finally going for some crowd control here, gets a sheep onto Cerulean. I think he's trying to position here for Brain, trying to maybe get Cerulean a little bit low before he goes for the crowd control. He's pushing in, could get Hammer of Justice behind the pillar. He's going for the Shimmer Poly, he gets it. Let's see, Counterspell secured, but it's on fire, not on Arcane. Cerulean still taking a big hit here though. Frozen Orb gets dropped, Hammer of Justice, but Cerulean with a massive Temporal Shield is going to be okay from that situation. Still another nice push to get a fear. They extend the CC chain. Cerulean might have to use his Ice Block here. Brain might have to use his Trinket. Honestly, I would rather see Brain Trinket and Sacrificed in this situation if they have to use anything. But Drake, what an MVP with those Vivifies, with those heals, keeping his mage nice and healthy, keeping his team from using a single cooldown in that exchange, and actually getting decent pressure onto Burn. If they could land a Greater Power Blast, no, he's going to get feared on it. So once again, I think we're going to see M2KC just kind of go back to default position at the pillar. But Jao finally snipes in another polymorph, and Brain Trinket sacrifices. No overlaps there from the side of M2KC. Their correct cooldown trade, but I gotta say, Jamili's been playing beautiful so far this game, getting these crowd controls, actually pushing in and being aggressive. Now, once again, a little swap happening here to Brain. Frozen Orb. Oh, that could be the bubble.
Wow.
That's gotta be the bubble. And this is what we want to see from Charlotte Phoenix. Great stuff.
Yeah. Charlotte
Yeah.
Phoenix really heating up here. I mean, these setups are beautiful. Saw the Hammer of Justice into the Infernal Stun with the Frozen Orb. And those are the kind of plays. I mean, look at the cooldowns they're able to force out at just 4% dampening. Their composition definitely has an edge at this point of the game, and they need to play to that strength, and they definitely are. This is looking like a new team compared to the last game. Let's see if they can continue that push here, Adrian.
Yeah, I mean, this has been looking really like a real contest. Whereas the last game, it was just kind of a little bit of PvE damage, and Cerulean was actually able to get so many greater pyros last game because there was no pressure on his team. There's no downside to him just peeking out because Brain wasn't ever under any crowd control pressure, so he was just healing it. They were able to get those and set up opportunities. Now look how crushed they are. Every single time Korlik pushes in here, there's zero threat to him, so he's totally fine to do this. Now there's a full Hammer of Justice on Brain. Looks like they're going after him once again with the Frozen Orb. He's in so much trouble here. Uses that wall to reduce the magic damage incoming by 20%, but that's the last line of the defense. They do have the Trinket rotating back up, but Dark Soul is now active for burn. And see how M2KC, they quiver behind the pillar. They have absolutely nothing to offer in terms of offense because of the way Charlotte Phoenix are playing. And just imagine in dampening what this is going to lead for the team if they can keep up this aggression, keep forcing those cooldowns on Brain. One of these later game Infernals will definitely secure it and bring Charlotte Phoenix back into the series.
Chaos Bolt lands from Burn, trying to create some damage over onto Drake as he rolls over. 12% dampening. Keep in mind the last one ended at 80% dampening. So could take a while. I think a lot of that is due to the positioning right now of M2KC. I really believe that they need to move to the bigger pillar. That'll give them a lot more flexibility for line of sighting and avoiding some of this unstoppable poke we're seeing from the Charlotte Phoenix. Really likely going to drop a Blizzard, drop a Frozen Orbs. Cerulean, Brain, and Drake are just going to be line of sighting once again. Cerulean looking for a greater Pyroblast, and that's the thing. I mean, if he can sneak in a few of those greater Pyroblasts, especially in dampening, that's when things can start snowballing for the team of M2KC. For the Charlotte Phoenix, they're making a push here. Millie in a great position right now to make sure he's getting pressure onto all three members. Burn going to be backing him up. They actually go for a big burst onto Millie. He ice blocked, so I'm not sure if that was necessarily needed, but wanted to be really careful in that situation. And potentially for the Charlotte Phoenix, they're just going to go after Jamili. He's actually, he is playing full versatility, but he does not have Temporal Shield, and that is a major mage defensive cooldown. So if M2KC realize that, they might want to actually make some swaps if Jamili continues to play this pushed up.
I think Drake can actually just shove his Touch of Karma on any target he likes right now. Burn got Blessing of Protected on the Touch of Death earlier, which is why Drake wants to make an offensive push right now. Jamili also blocking earlier, trying to hold on to the Sacrifice, I guess, so they can have that for the Warlock potentially. But Drake is doing a good job just bouncing between these two casters. Now he's going to set up a big push here onto Jamili. His Fist of Fury is going to be doing massive damage here. Korlik might need to use a Sacrifice. He's going to go for the Divine Favor. Holy Light never fails to top somebody off. Beautiful heals there from Korlik. He's going to keep Jamili at a 100%. Cerulean's going to duck for cover. Drake is going to port back to his corner. Brain was actually sitting down there for a drink, but I don't think I saw him get any ticks. And I mean, even now, like, look at Korlik, just sit down and drink and top your mana off. Even if it's, 2%, 3% mana, you may as well, because last game you needed those 2 or 3%. But now Brain, Hammer of Justice is going to end. I think he uses Human Racial. He gets another counter Hammer of Justice onto Korlik, full sheep. And now Korlik's going to have to Trinket, use that Sacrifice onto Burn. And with that trade, M2KC are going to take it and run with it.
That's a very nice deal for M2KC there. And that's one thing. I think Korlik, when he goes in for the Hammer of Justice, he shouldn't initiate with it, and they shouldn't get too tunnel vision on Brain. What I really liked about what they were doing before is they would let Jamili lead with a sheep. It's not that difficult to get a sheep, I think, in this matchup, since Burn is so demanding of interrupts from Cerulean. So once he lands that sheep on Brain, that's when Korlik needs to be pushing in for the crowd control. As it happens, it's actually working out the opposite way. Big cooldowns are being forced. Brain was able to cross the entire map, although Cerulean forced into the ice block there, maybe using it a little bit to kind of get some offense going for his team, as Jamili is low, Burn is low as well. Korlik's got some work to do. The Avenging Wrath is coming up. This is a lot of crowd control. Korlik in trouble. Can they get the Cauterize here? That's the question for Charlotte Phoenix. Looks like the answer is no. Brain, big heals coming through to keep him alive. Ooh. Now the Divine Shield. They sheep the Divine Shield. What a play from M2KC. Burn falls. Huge plays from M2KC as they win the series.
Oh, man. What this honestly was just... I am so excited to see what M2KC can do in this tournament. It's just one of those series where you actually look at a team and realize what they're capable of. I think we've been seeing, obviously, huge signs of potential